everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner, with a very special episode of VSW podcast. We're back at it, back in the Kill City with some more, combatants. And today we got a very special guest, the one and only Maxwell Chicago. Welcome.
The maestro of music, martinis, and mayhem, Maxwell Chicago. What's up, brother? How you doing today?
I caught a glimpse of you in that tournament/movie, and man, what an experience the whole thing is. And we're gonna talk a little bit. We're gonna talk a lot about it, but for people that don't know, we're gonna just kind of fast track your career a little bit. When did you get into wrestling?
Oh, geez, we're going this far back. Well, first off, I want to say I'm not dead. There's a rumor going around that I died at the Kill City Cup, but I'm still alive. So just want to let everybody know out there that I'm still alive. But yeah, it was 2005. Wrestling by the name of Marty Jannetty. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He had a school in Tallahassee, Florida. And my mom bought me the newspaper that said Marty Jannetty has a wrestling school. And that was the title of the newspaper article. That was just Marty Jannetty has a wrestling school. So I went over there and I went in sandals and gym shorts and a t-shirt and got kind of laughed out by all the students. But Marty was like the nicest guy in the world, and started trained for 2 years, maybe had 3 matches in those 2 years. So I didn't get to get in the ring that much. I was a referee, and after 2 years, I finally started wrestling all over Florida, and then all over Georgia, and then all over the United States.
Wow. Working right off the bat with, someone like Marty Jannetty. I actually do know him. I grew up watching, wrestling in, the 80s and such. And, tag team wrestling for me was a big part of it. And the Rockers was just, for me, one of those top tag teams. And, everybody went off to kind of do their thing. Shawn Michaels went off. And, Jannetty was always, though, at the time, to me, the better wrestler. He was more entertaining at the time until later on when HBK, broke away. Obviously you must have watched, prior to that wrestling where you kind of, that's exciting to be able to work with a name. Was that, something that was like exciting at the time, or you're like kind of like, I guess starstruck at the time, or was it just, just cool, regular, average dude?
Definitely starstruck. I watched wrestling my whole life. Huge Rockers fan, Ultimate Warrior, and NWO. Those are my things. Scott Hall. But yeah, so when they had the school, I called and I left a message because nobody answered. And then I get a call back, and he goes, "Oh, this is Marty Jannetty." And I'm like, "From the Rockers?" And he's like, "Yeah, and we want to know if you want to come down." So when I came down, I was like super starstruck. I even brought a friend with me because I was kind of nervous. And but he was the nicest guy ever. Marty, I can't say enough good things about him. He just likes to talk, and, I like to listen. So it was kind of a match made in heaven. And I remember being like, oh, maybe I can be Maxwell Jannetty was my first idea. I'll be Maxwell Jannetty. And I never had the guts to ask him if I could be Maxwell Jannetty. I remember also, like, my third practice, we were practicing something, and I said something out of my mouth. I can't remember what I said, but about Shawn Michaels. And everybody looked at me, and they're like, don't talk about Shawn Michaels. But Marty was like, no, it's all right. You can talk about Shawn. He was a really good dude. And he always gave me great advice. And if I ever needed him to do a reference or an interview for me, he got me into Pro Wrestling Illustrated in 2009. I had a 2-page spread, and it was all because of Marty. They called him up, and he gave a really good interview. And they wouldn't have done that article on me if it wasn't for him. So, yeah, he was a great dude. I have nothing but good things to say about Marty.
No, and I feel like it's a shame with the way, I guess the way social media works, and I guess media works in general, that, negativity outdraws anything positive. So, like, if something can be negatively spun, it can snowball. People can make memes. People can make fun of it. When it's positive, people really can't do that. And I feel like poor Marty gets this, like, the ass end of the internet all the time.
Well, I think I think those come from people that have not met Marty. Because if you meet Marty, he's the nicest guy in the world. there's plenty of times he's stuck up for me, and he's done good things for everybody, all the other wrestlers. And he's always trying to train. He's always, even with his ankle. I don't know if you know about his ankle, but his ankle is all, he
Yeah,
can't
he had
walk.
some surgeries at some point. I think a couple years back, was it?
Yeah, he can't walk anymore. And when I was wrestling with him, his ankle bone was like already like it was almost at the bottom of his foot, and he still wrestled and he still trained. He wasn't a trainer that didn't get in the ring. He got in the ring. One of a typical thing he would say is, "I have a whole Red Bull and a Viagra. We're going to train all night." And I
So he
go,
wasn't
"Okay."
one to just he just wasn't using his name to open a school. He was physically in there, with the guys and girls, showing you how to work, showing you how to bump, showing you what to do, and I think that makes a difference because some people will just use the name and then they'll have like three trainers under them, and maybe they'll come once a week, and it's like that's cool, but you don't get that
No,
experience from these people.
yeah, he showed up. He showed up and he worked with us. We had one guy, Bobby Sanford, which was the best student of the group. He came if it was like something that involved, jumping off the top rope. He would do that. And which Bobby was a great, helper. Marty's best student, and but he would always get in the ring and he would run the ropes and he would do whatever with his ankle all messed up. And he was just a great guy. He
Yeah,
still
you
is
got
a
to
great
come. He is, yeah. He's not. That's another rumor. He's not dead either. He's still alive too.
guy.
Some
Yes,
people think he is. He's not. I follow him on Facebook. He always has something to say, and you know what? He's very responsive. Fans, he'll answer your questions. You have something to ask him about wrestling or anything, he'll answer you. He's
and
not
he
like
wants to wrestle too. He wants to wrestle too. He doesn't want to be hurt. I know he's getting up there in age and he's hurt, but he wants to get in there. That's his favorite thing to do, and he loves to. He doesn't want to wrestle the old guys. He wants to wrestle the young guys. That's the best thing
no.
about it.
And then that's something, like I always enjoy wrestlers who like wrestling. Because there is wrestlers that don't like wrestling or don't follow wrestling or are just in it for other reasons. And then there's wrestlers that, they start off as passionate fans, and they, even if they can't do it now, they're still pushing for the people. They're still out there promoting, they're still helping, they're still doing anything they can do in the industry. And you got to commend that. You got even
Yeah,
if you're not on top, you're still doing your part.
definitely, definitely.
So you're down in Florida. You did that for a little bit, and then I take it you branched out.
Yeah, it took about 6 years, but the first 6 years I was just Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Gulf Coast. And then the next 6 years, I started to get my name out there, started to go to Vegas, started to go to Oregon, started to go to Maine a lot, Chicago, a couple times in New York. But yeah, Texas, which was a lot of fun. Uh, New Orleans also. So I basically wrestled all over the U.S. And yeah, it was great. The more people right? That gets
It
you
is.
further.
What would you say was like the defining point or the changing point that got you out there?
Huh. I will say switching from my regular tights to the tuxedo. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but so I came out the first 6 years, I came out in regular tights, long tights. I had short tights. I had those, I want to be Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin tights. And I was still doing my gimmick, but it wasn't like, all right, so what do I like? I'm not standing out and people aren't remembering me. So I was like, I'm gonna make something kind of like the Honky Tonk Man, and he had that full Elvis suit.
Yeah.
And I said, I want the suit from Honky Tonk Man, but the pants from Disco Inferno. So I put Honky Tonk Man and Disco Inferno together, and I made that tuxedo, and it was Tuesday, which this is a great thing about wrestling in Florida too. Excuse me. The best thing about wrestling in Central Florida was there was a Tuesday night show, a Wednesday night show, a Thursday night show, a Friday night show, and then you'd go out and find Saturday and Sunday night shows wherever you could. So we were wrestling more than the guys in FCW, that's now NXT,
Yeah.
because there was a guy running shows every single day of the week, and they were in different cities. So it would be Tampa, it would be in Lutz, it would be in Riverview, so just different little cities. So we got to work a lot. And on the one Tuesday I showed up, there was a show in Largo, Florida that happened every Tuesday, and Jimmy Hart showed up. and Jimmy Hart's doing a reality show about a guy with one leg, and he lost it to, I don't know what he lost it to. I don't want to make anything up, but anyway, it was about him, and he comes in the locker room, and I'm putting on my tuxedo for the very first time. Very first time I put on a tuxedo, and he goes, "I want that kid. Uh, I want him to be the guy in my reality show. I want him to be in the main event." And like I never even met Jimmy Hart, so I was like stoked, and it was all because I tried on this new silly outfit. And Jimmy Hart, he's a silly outfit. Every single time he came to the ring, he had a different jacket. So I wrestled with him.
But he managed the honky tonk man. You probably was like, you know what? I remember that jacket. Let's take this kid.
Yeah. So we had and then the guy that was, Steve Chamberlain, I think is his name. I think he was originally signed before Zach Gowen, and then Vince McMahon said, "No, I want the other one-legged wrestler." So they fired Steve, and they hired Zach Gowen. I don't know if that's a true story, but that's what I heard. Anyway, so I wrestled Steve Chamberlain. We had a really great match, and then after that, Jimmy reached out to some people, and then I met a couple other people, and I started going all over the place, and I just needed something to stand out, and it was that stupid tuxedo. Which actually, it's not stupid. I shouldn't make fun of it. It made me.
And Jimmy's another one in the industry, very, humble, still to this day, if he's on the show, he's down there. I saw photos of him breaking down the ring. He's still putting in dues, he still treats this industry at the highest level with respect.
Yeah, he's another one that likes to talk all day too, and I'm another one that likes to listen all day. So that worked out too.
And sometimes that's where it's at, the listening. You can soak up a lot of knowledge, especially from these guys that have been in the industry for, Jimmy, like 40, 50 plus years, it seems at this point. At least 30, at least, 40 now. Because I remember him, in WrestleMania 1 and 2. And that's the thing. They have such tales, but they've also done such things right to make it still to this point, still be relevant, still be known, and still be working.
Yep, they're still on TV every once in a while. I think Jimmy was just on TV for Dark Side of the Ring or something.
Yeah, something like I think so. And now I feel like wrestling's kind of getting big again. Biopics are starting to take off. People wanted to make stories. They did something about the Von Erichs. They'll probably do something about the Sanoa family and who knows what else. Because I feel like wrestling, like I said, it's getting big again. People are starting to pick up interest in it.
Definitely, and I think they should have done, instead of a movie about the Von Erichs, they should have done a TV show about WCCW, and that could have been 3 seasons. There's so many characters in that WCCW locker room. They could have made a great TV show, but that movie was okay.
Yeah, I still yet to see it. But it is supposed to. I've heard it was good.
It's
sometimes I get weird about watching, like even Dark Side of the Ring. I kind of sometimes will be like, no, I don't want to watch it. A, it's something I already know about. There's no need to rehash it. And B, sometimes it just puts a negative spin on things that I feel like, again, it's just riding that negativity of wrestling where there's so much positivity that you can ride that I would rather just ride that.
Yeah, I understand that.
Like, like when they dropped the Ric Flair episode, I remember when I was a kid what he did on the airplane. It wasn't a shock. But to a whole new generation, it was a shock that he acted like that. But at the time, if you knew anything about Flair, if you knew what was going on backstage, if you knew what kind of the atmosphere was like, the drugs and the usage and everything else, it was just kind of so much different than it is today. It wasn't this industry where people cared so much about wellness. It was very much carnival, like where people did what they want. Just get through the night. Let's make that dollar. And going through all that, I wasn't surprised as a kid. But like I said, coming now with a company, the whole industry has changed over the course of 30 years. It's become, rather clean. It's not perfect, but rather clean. A lot of people were surprised about it. There was a lot of uproar. People are trying to, and it's like, but he didn't do this today. He did this back then. That was him then. And it wasn't a secret then. It was told about back then. It just, people got paid off. It's like, I don't know, rehashing old stuff just to draw in wrestling. For me, it's more about, I started the podcast to get eyes and ears on the scene, I was going to all these shows, local shows, VFW halls, small shows, and I'm seeing great girls, guys. They're out there. They're putting their soul, their heart into it. The only thing that's missing is the eyes and ears. They can only fill so much into a small arena. And if you only have certain capabilities to get your name out there, well, you can only get so much reach. So, I wanted to just push eyes and ears. And we have now even better, platforms too. Obviously, there's IWTV. You can get your stuff out there, and such. And it just evolved into, doing interviews and getting, people. But I always like to, talk about the positive in wrestling just because I feel like there is so much negative, more so on the mainstream. I don't see it so much on the indie scene. But on the mainstream wrestling, I feel like they nitpick. They look for it.
Yeah, I'll just say, just in closing that, I agree with everything you're saying. I'm glad some of those dark sides of the ring are up because otherwise, a lot of people wouldn't even know about some of those stories, and some of those stories are actually, like they did one on Marty, which is not the most flattering one, but now the world knows Marty a little better. And there's other ones like the one in Korea. That one was a good one, kind of educating on what it was like to wrestle in Korea. So there's some good ones.
Yeah, there was. I mean, like I'll be honest. I was a fan of the Luna Vachon once. I think a lot of people need to know about Luna Vachon. Owen
Yeah,
Hart, as sad as it was
the
the Owen Hart one, as sad as it was done pretty well. I thought. It was with a lot of taste. It's just I don't like seeing people be dragged. They've already done this so long ago. It's like now they've living their lives. They're just trying to do whatever they're doing. Don't drag them now. They were already dragged then, believe me.
No, yeah, I got you.
But yeah, that's wrestling though. And so, you started traveling, you're on the national scene. Did you make it into WWE doing some shows or anything?
No,
Or
no, other than security, nothing really big. I did Barrett's Global Force Wrestling, which was on pay-per-view, so I was on pay-per-view a couple times, main evented both times, with Congo Kong. Uh, but yeah, I got to do what I got to do, and I'm very proud of what I did.
did you try to go? I always ask because some people don't want to go. Some people don't want to go to WWE. They don't want to go to AEW. They just want the indie scene. Other people, every week they're sending their resume.
Uh, Other than so what happened? Other than no, I never sent. I think I maybe sent WWE DVD back when you could send DVDs or whatever VHSs. Uh, Never heard back, but I remember I was on one show with Sanjay Dutt, who was big in TNA still, and now I don't know who Sanjay is working for now. But Sanjay was like one of the coolest dudes ever, and I was just on a show with him, and I made him laugh, and he got me on Jeff Jarrett's Global Force because I made him laugh, not even in the ring. I made him laugh in the backstage area. And I didn't even know who he was, but he just listened to me talk and he just wouldn't stop laughing. And he's like, "You're a clown, man." Yes. And he was never nice to me either. He's like, "You're just a clown." And then, but he got me so many opportunities. So, I don't know what Sanjay is doing now, but that Sanjay Dutt's the coolest dude ever. And I wouldn't have gotten on pay-per-view a bunch of times or got to go in the Northeast as much if it wasn't for Sanjay Dutt.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, for those that have seen you and have watched you, they do say you're like one of the best comedic wrestlers to date. You make people laugh and you entertain. You're good at what you do.
I like to think so. That when I was doing it that I was at the top of my game.
Is that something that you went into wanting to do? Be that kind of a wrestler? Were you trying to be a little bit more serious and then it just evolved?
Well, when you get into wrestling, you always want to be like, the next Hulk Hogan. And then you realize, okay, well, I have to embrace what I'm good at. And I'm good at being funny. I'm good at making people laugh. I'm good at making people think that, yeah, wrestling is a serious thing, but sometimes it can be fun. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna ditch this because when I first started wrestling, I wanted to be the next CM Punk because CM Punk was like my current favorite, and I started watching Ring of Honor just for CM Punk, and when I went out there trying to be like CM Punk, nobody remembered my name, nobody cheered for me, nobody booed for me, nobody did anything because I wasn't trying to be me. I was trying to be somebody else. And then I started, being me, and that's when it all started working out. And I realized if I could. So another thing was I would always make all the wrestlers' girlfriends laugh when I'm in the ring. So I'm like, and that's not like I'm not trying to do anything with other wrestlers' girlfriends, but those are the girls that come with the wrestlers. They don't like wrestling. A
No.
lot of the wrestlers' girlfriends don't like wrestling. They're only there to see their boyfriends, and they'll sit in the crowd and they'll just wait till their boyfriends to come on, and then they'll pay attention and cheer. But when I came on, the wrestler's boyfriend, oh, you're the only one I watch because you're so funny, because this is, wrestling and it's kind of silly and we're in underwear and stuff. So I was like, I'm going to reach those people that don't like the wrestling because I already have the people that do like the wrestling and then bring them together.
And I mean, I think that's what comedic wrestling kind of can do. I mean, you see a lot of people got gravitate with people like Orange Cassidy and Colt Cabana, and they'll come together. People that normally don't like wrestling will be like, well, I like comedy. Who doesn't like this kind of comedy? And they'll just gravitate towards it, and it becomes that kind of like that great blend.
I always wanted to wrestle though too. So I would go out there and I get a lot of heat for this too. So I'd be in my tuxedo and I'd be doing my act, and then I would try to do like a really cool move, like swinging a cradle slam into a backbreaker and then flip it over into a face buster, like a flatliner. And then I would get to the back and like something like Michael Tarver would say, why are you doing those moves? You're a comedy wrestler. And I'd be like, well, I wanted to show too that I can do these things. And that's why I like Johnny Cage so much. If you ever played Mortal Kombat, Johnny Cage, he's the comedic relief of Mortal Kombat. He's funny, but he's also one of the best players in the game. And he has one of the coolest move sets of the game. So that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like Johnny Cage, Frank Sinatra, and show that I could do those moves. So I want to make people laugh, and then when it comes time to go, show that I could go
and punch him straight in the balls.
Yes.
But it's true. And behind all the laughs and comedy, you have the training. Why not use it? Why not show it? You can perform it, and I think and that's the thing. It brings it again together. It's just like you're not a one trick pony. You can come out, you can do whatever, and then you can also put on a legit match if it had to be. And you said after the Jimmy Hart stuff and stuff, you started to do stuff up in the Northeast. What'd you work on up here?
Maine, mostly in Maine. I did a couple of Evolve shows in Brooklyn and in Queens. I did Evolve a couple times up there. Yeah, I guess that's it. I went to Boston once, but I can't remember the place I wrestled for in Boston. But yeah, I would come up to Maine like once a month.
Nice. And Northeast is a thriving wrestling scene. We got, people coming and going all over the place. They come in, a couple months later, they're on TV, and, they get a national contract. So they're going overseas. Get a lot of people going, overseas. Have you ever been overseas to wrestle?
No, I never. I had the opportunity once to wrestle for the Dominican Republic, or for a place in the Dominican Republic, and my flight got canceled that day. So I didn't get a chance. But no, I was, and then I grew up in the time where like Ring of Honor was getting crazy good.
Yep.
But it was only like on DVDs. You could only get it on DVD or VHS. And I just remember, you got to get to the Northeast if you want to show that you're, a top wrestler, because that's when CM Punk, Alex Shelley, guys like that were all coming out that were like super good.
No, definitely, and like I said, I'm very lucky, being where I am, because I'm like, right in Mass, we got Beyond Wrestling, Limitless Wrestling, Chaotic Wrestling. Those three alone, they produced some of the top stars over the last years coming out of there. MJF, Sasha Banks, even, coming out of New England Pro. So much stuff, and beyond just giving the exposure, between, before it was uncharted territory, and now wrestling open every week. It's that weekly platform. That's the one thing I love. 2020 was devastating, but the one thing I loved about it is a lot of people got innovative, and a lot of people went back to the taping era of wrestling where they would tape their shows. And having a weekly show to watch, it was awesome because, I mean, you're sitting home, you can watch it at your own pace. You can pause a match, you can watch a match a few times. You can study it a little bit. You can do what I was starting to do, podcast about it, and analyze things and get into the story a little bit. It was a little bit of a slower pace.
Yeah, definitely. I got to wrestle for Beyond when they were traveling around the United States, and I've talked to the guys at Limitless a lot. We haven't ever made a connection. But I remember one time I went to Boston, and I was hanging out with. I went there to, I think it was like a Dragon Gate tryout. Plus, I wanted to train at, it was Killer Kowalski's old school.
Yep.
I think Tommaso Ciampa was like the head trainer there, and he was really great, a really nice guy. And he took me around Boston for a little bit. That was cool. My biggest claim to fame is I introduced Tommaso to Johnny Gargano.
Really?
Yeah, we were at an airport, or no, we were not at an airport. Yeah, we were picking Johnny up from the airport, I think. And Tommaso goes, which one is he? And I point and I go, that one.
That's great. I mean, and now look at them, best of friends.
And they've been best friends ever since. And if I never pointed, that shit never happens.
Imagine you picked the wrong guy.
Yeah.
But then, I'm like you said, so I mean, are you still wrestling right now currently, or are you just kind of chilling?
Nah, my I don't know if you can see on camera, but that collarbone's pretty broken.
Yeah, that don't look pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty broken. So I'm not gonna say never, but it'll happen every once in a while. But it's hard to do it with a collarbone with a bone sticking out of your neck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you don't want to risk further injury. But I mean, you did. Well, I mean, it's kind of considered Hollywood. You made it to the big screen. You made it to the movies. You're on IMBD.
Yeah, like I said, I'm proud of what I did. I had a lot of good matches with a lot of great guys, and how many people can say they were trained by Mari Jannetty, who is the wrestler's wrestler? That's who you want to be trained.
He is. I mean, I just saw photos of him at down in Mania weekend. He was everywhere, highly respected. A great photo of him in Tatanka smoking the peace pipe.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of that. I mean, good.
I'm doing that right now.
Overall, good guy. Like I said, he's one of those guys. Like I said, if you just cut the negativity out of the craziness or whatever you want out of it, and if you ever just to ask him, hey, what do you think of this, or talk about wrestling, he'll answer you right back and be straightforward. And it doesn't matter if you're a fan. It don't matter who you are. He'll just answer you as a human to human.
Definitely, man. And like I said, I'm really proud about everything I did. There's the only thing I'm kind of sad about is that all my best matches are on WWNlive.com, I think. And I think WWE bought their archives. So
the Evolve stuff should be on WWE.
I don't think my stuff is on there because they have certain Evolve shows, but they don't have all of them.
No, they don't. But I did, because I remember talking to a few people. I remember reading somewhere down the line that over like the next 5 years, when they switched to Peacock, that all the Evolve shows would eventually be on there.
I hope so, because my best stuff is on Dragon Gate, Evolve, and FIP. And I have a lot of good stuff on YouTube, but all my best stuff is on there, and I think WWE owns it. So I hope they release, which they should. I mean, everybody loves watching wrestling every time of the day, so they should release all that stuff.
And plus, they've taken. I mean, well, that was another farm for them, was Evolve, and when they bought them, they took some of the guys. Some of the guys are still there. We had Christian Casanova from out of here. They took Anthony Green from out of here,
which I have a win over Anthony Green.
What do you have?
I have a win over Anthony Green when he was I beat him.
When he was like retrosexual AG, or when he was like,
when Anthony Green was at the height of his height, which he probably still is, I beat him in the center of the ring 1, 2, 3. So I have a win over him.
see, that's good to hear. How was it wrestling him? He's a top star.
Oh, he's awesome. He was, and I remember he messaged me. He messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I'm a big fan of you." Before we even met, so it was a really honor to meet him and then wrestle him. And his gimmick was, I don't know what it is now, but it was really awesome. I was a big fan of him. Still, he's always a nice guy too. So
He's another one that kind of got me in the indie scene because when I was a kid, I would go to indie shows, and indie shows weren't like they are today. I'd go out, see a bunch of unknown guys, and then they'd bring me like 3 WWE one. I was like a Honky Tonk Man, the Warlord, maybe a WCW ref, maybe somebody else famous, and then I wouldn't see the promotion again for like a year until the police department came back around selling me tickets
yeah, I
for
got you.
donations. So it was very hard to follow. I followed some stuff through PWI, but for the most part, my wrestling source was WWE, WCW, ECW would come out. I got into some of the NWA. Again, though, being on the Northeast, some of the stuff was hard to watch from the South and the Midwest if you didn't know where to find it. If you didn't have satellite TV, because the internet wasn't there. There was no YouTube. There was no everything was in its infancy.
Yeah.
But when I got back into wrestling in general, and in about 2017, I stepped into a small arena. One of the people I saw was Anthony Green, and I was just dumbfounded. I was dumbfounded that somebody on the indie scene could have such a great character. Because, like, again, when I went to the indies, there was no characters. Everybody was kind of generic. Everybody was kind of like the guy that would face the superstar on the early Monday Night Raws. They were just the jobbers. They were the people out there not doing anything. And now all of a sudden you had, someone like Anthony Green on the show coming out. He had 2 girls by his side. He had this great entrance song. He was, the jacket. He had the fanny pack, lights at glint. I'm like, wow, indie wrestling is awesome.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I've just been in love with indie wrestling. And he's another one. He's a wrestler's wrestler. He goes out his way to help people and help the industry and help the promoters and wherever he's working, just kind of make it a little bit better.
Yeah, he definitely helped me.
But that was on Evolve. Because I was saying Evolve, I was thinking him because I was actually I went to the last Evolve show. It took place in Melrose right before the world shut down. He was on the show. Mansoor was on the show. A few other people there. It was a doubleheader with Beyond. And then there would be no more Evolve. The pandemic and WWE bought it.
Yeah, I was on the last Dragon Gate show, so I got to say that. I was on the very last Dragon Gate show. Nobody could take that away from me. And I wasn't supposed to be on that show either, but I made it.
That's history right there. That's history. So how'd you end up into the hands of Kill City?
So Champ Matthews, Luke, he hit me up and he wanted me to be the Johnny Cage, which that's who I already am anyway. He wanted me to be the Johnny Cage of Kill City. And I said, yeah, definitely. Actually, no, I said no at first. And then he convinced me, and then I went over there and I showed up and I saw what I was in for, and I was like, oh man, I didn't know it was gonna be this serious.
It was pretty serious. So I mean, the set is nothing. The set is no joke. I was in a lull at the time in wrestling because in the indie scene things can kind of get a little stale. Not that it's anybody's fault. It's just nobody's exclusive. You get a lot of shows. If you go to a lot of shows, you start seeing a lot of the similar stuff. So I was like, everything's the same. I need something different. I really love different things. I love when wrestlers aren't themselves. I love when wrestlers are playing different characters. I'm a big fan of like promotions like Rad Pro and stuff where they step out of their element. And I started seeing, commercials for Kill City Cup. And I'm like, what is this? This is wild. So I clicked on it. And I'll be honest, the name, the first thing I saw was like Brian Cage. That enticed me. I'm a big Brian Cage fan. My wife's a big Brian Cage fan, so I'm like, score. Because anything that Brian Cage is in, that's how I can get my wife to kind of watch wrestling. I'll lie to her. I'll be like, yeah, he's booked in the main event of AEW, I heard. And then I'll be like, oh, card was subject to change. Damn it.
Hmm.
But at least I can get her to watch the whole show. But, we watched this thing, and it was a beautiful time. It was only an hour long. And I was just dumbfounded by the production that went into it, the wrestlers, the story, everything just coming together so perfect.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I just didn't know how many stars were going to be there. You know, Evan Bourne, Matt Sydal, Jimmy Jacobs, Brian Cage, Too Cold Scorpio. Like I showed up, and I showed up with my dog too. Like I showed up because I didn't know it was going to be this big thing. I thought it was just going to be like your regular kind of show. But I showed up and there's all these people walking around in crazy outfits, and there's people that have been on TV everywhere, and the set looks great, and you could tell that they put a ton of work into it and a ton of time into it, and it was treated really like a big deal, so that was cool.
Now, had you known Champ Matthews and Connor Murphy prior?
Yes, they were the ones that got me booked in Maine.
Okay.
They came down to Tampa, and we're on a Thursday night show in Tampa. So on the Thursdays they would be in Tampa, and Champ Matthews was there, and I was in the ring doing some stupid stuff, and then he was like trying to get me to do more stupid stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, and that's how we became friends. And just like he's trying to teach me how to like, what's the thing where Tajiri did the handstand into the ropes, and
Oh,
then
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
kind of like springboard back, yeah.
right, he's trying to teach me how to do that, and he can do it because he's got a six pack and perfect like leg strength. And I'm like, I don't, and I'm just believing in myself, and everybody's looking at me, and it's a billiards hall, so people are playing pool while we're trying to do these handsprings, and he's nailing them, and I'm just falling on my face, and that's how we became friends. I don't even know if he remembers that. And then he introduced me to Paul, and then we got him on shows on Florida, and he got us on show on Maine. And every time he came to Maine, it was a great time. I was such a baby back then because I was like, oh, this Maine state. I don't know about this. I don't know. Have you been to Maine?
Me, yeah, yeah. I go to Maine all the time for wrestling. That's one of my favorite states to go to wrestling.
Okay, I'm not saying anything bad about Maine, but Maine's a different state. Can you agree with me on that?
It is a different state. It's totally different.
Yes.
Um, it has its good points though. Maybe in the Versace Zone, they have really cheap weed.
You got to be ready to have a good time, but you also have to be ready to be responsible. And I wasn't ready to do both when I got
Oh,
to
you gotta
Maine.
also be ready to like learn how to like use your high beams at night. What happens if you hit a deer? There's a bunch of shit going through Maine that you gotta learn.
Yeah. Well, there was also like at all the shows in Maine, there was like a we can do whatever we want kind of feeling.
Oh
And I
yeah,
and I wasn't ready for that.
yeah. They say like live free or whatever they say about New Hampshire, but really, honestly, Maine is the real free state. That's where the shit really goes down.
I'll give a
Um,
PG. I'll give a PG story. And we're in a show in Maine. I think it's in Bangor. You've been to Bangor?
yeah, they dragged me up there for actually a Kill City Cup. They were doing a seminar, and I went up there. Bangor Brewers, way, way up there. It was just like 6 hour drive for me.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're at the show, and everybody's at the front smoking weed, which is great. We're all fan. And there's a police station right across the street. And I'm just like, hey, are we like, what do you? I don't think we should do this. And they're like, they don't care. And they like just everybody would just blow the weed in the direction of the police station. And like, I don't know. I was just like, oh, I wasn't ready for that. Because
Yeah,
this was back when it was illegal. This is '07 or '09.
it's definitely than a different feel than Florida is.
Yeah, well,
And I've
Florida.
been to Florida, and I like Florida. I go to Florida, but when I go to Florida, I got to go to like vape shops and buy like whatever they sell in the market there. And I don't get to go to walk into a dispensary because Mass is pretty free. You can just walk in. But Maine is on a whole different level. That's just like they will blow it in the smoke. The cops will stop and hit the joint with you. And you're kind of like, even today, I'm still like, really?
Yeah,
um,
Florida's crazy too, but you already know that going into it. You know, you already know when you go to a Florida show, you already know what you're getting into. When I went up to Maine, I had no idea what I was getting into.
how's the vibe in Chicago shows though? Because I figured those would be like kind of hype, right?
Yes, I love Chicago shows. I got to do a bunch of lucha shows in Chicago, which was awesome. And I speak a little Spanish, so I do my comedy in Spanish, which was a lot of fun. And I got Chicago. Everybody's into it in Chicago, no matter if it's a huge show or a big show or a little show. Everybody's into it.
You know, and I think Chicago's another wrestling city. It doesn't get as much press as some of the others, but WrestleMania 2 was out there, part of it. It
They
does
had big
have the scene.
they had big nitros in Chicago, big WCW nitros. When
Yep, and
Dennis Rodman,
AEW too. AEW uses them big time for their one of their shows. I was supposed to go out there for one of them, and I didn't end up making it. My car broke down, but I had the whole package. I had that, and I was really excited for the 2 cup stuff show that they do out there. At the time, it was 2 cup stuff. I think now they're on like 10 cup stuffed. I don't know. It was an indie show. Kind of partners up with GCW. But yeah, that's the kind of cool thing about wrestling. Depending on where you wrestle, it is a little bit different. The rules are a little bit different, but the vibe and what you can do there is a little bit different too. How the fans react to what you do is a little bit different.
yeah, definitely. In Florida, a lot of time, like it's kind of like I would get booed a lot, get called names because of where I came out in. And then in the Northeast and in the Midwest, people would just laugh and then they'd start to cheer for me. So crowds are different everywhere you go. You just got to learn how to adapt, I guess.
And is there any technique to kind of take in that heat to not let it bug you, or is it kind of fuel you?
Oh no, it never bugged me. It always meant I was doing the job right. So it never bugged me. I was always the bad guy, but I always was in when I went out, I was the good guy in my head. But then most of the people would treat me as the bad guy, but I wouldn't change who I was.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes a good heel believable. Because the bad guy doesn't think they're being evil. Sometimes they think they're doing the right thing.
Well, I wasn't evil. I was just a talented lounge singer. But the problem was they wanted to watch wrestling.
And that's like what's his name came out used to do it. Elias would come out, start with a song. The fans would, we're not here to listen to music. We want to see wrestling.
Oh well, I got another story. Since we're telling stories, not Elias because that was way after I left Florida. But there was a guy named Aiden English, I think.
Yep.
Okay, so we had a show in Plant City, Florida, that would happen every Saturday, and they would never pay. So the only time if you couldn't find a Saturday and you wanted to wrestle and try to make some t-shirt money, you'd go to Plant City, but you wouldn't get paid, which sucks. But so every once in a while there'd be a Saturday, and then my girlfriend would be like, "Why are you going over there if you're not getting paid?" And I love wrestling. I want to go wrestle, which is the wrong thing to do, by the way. Do not work for free, people. Do never work for free. I was doing this as a dumb person because I was just trying to get exposure. Because they also had a TV show. They also had a TV show. That's why I did it. They had a TV show that was on at 1:30 in the morning after Friends. And I remember they paid like $10,000 for a commercial that says, "Hey, we're on at 1:30 in the morning after Friends." And because it was on local, whatever, syndicated, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I went and I wrestled, and in the crowd was Xavier Woods, who is on TV now, who's a great guy. Nothing bad to say. And a couple other guys. They all came from FCW to watch this show. And then it's funny, a week later, Aiden English, or maybe a couple weeks later, Aiden English started doing this little singing thing on NXT or whatever. So I thought that was a strange coincidence. And then a lot of my moves that I was doing, he started doing. So I thought that was a strange coincidence.
Hey, I mean, and that's the thing. If you're a bigger fish, they kind of go in and take from the little person, not thinking that maybe they're not even going to get noticed.
That's my spite story. All my stories have been positive. That's my spite story. Stole my gimmick.
That's okay. If there's only one bad story, that's good. I mean, that means you've had a pretty positive career.
No, he's
But
a nice guy too. I was just telling that story because it was kind of coincidental how that happened.
yeah, it's one of those mysteries. Maybe there'll be an episode somewhere down the line about it. But so you get into the arena, or the set rather, because it was more than just a ring. It was set really nice. They had everything looking professional there. You're seeing the superstars. You're seeing actors. You got Brian Cars on set. Great guy, really funny. You got all these other people. How was the experience there? How was it working that? Because it was a tape show, correct? It wasn't live. It wasn't in front of fans.
No, it wasn't in front of fans. There's a lot of people there, but it wasn't in front of fans. The set was great. You know what it reminded me of? Guts. Did you ever see the show Guts on Nickelodeon?
Yep.
Yeah, like it had some gut stuff in it. It had some horror movie stuff in it. What's really cool is they got the announcing booth uh right above the ring. So it looks exactly like, how like Shang Tsung or Shao Kahn would watch the ring.
Yeah,
And
it had that Mortal Kombat vibe for sure, and they're both up there. Him and Queen Gia.
yeah, I thought that was really, really cool. And I remember I told him I took my dog, and my dog was like, "Oh," my dog felt like it was in like a dangerous place because there's
Well, Kill City is a dangerous place. I mean,
right. She wasn't ready for it. The dog wasn't ready for it. But there's gas canisters everywhere, and there's dump barrels full of stuff, and no, so it was a really cool atmosphere. And then they're like, "Oh, you're gonna be in the ring with Jimmy Jacobs and Matt Seidel," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I
had you
was
had you worked with them prior or no?
no, I worked with Matt Seidel's brother, who's a really good wrestler. I don't know if he still wrestles. And I've been on shows with Jimmy Jacobs, but we never worked all together. And yeah, I was taped, and it was a lot of fun. I remember I hit Matt Seidel as hard as I could, and he goes, "You don't have to do that." And I go, "My bad, man." I go, "It's Kill City, Kill City Cup." And so it was a lot of fun. And then I remember I saw Too Cold Scorpio in the back, and I was working for a cannabis company actually, and they gave us free samples of this liquid THC, and
Oh.
it was awesome because I never met Too Cold. Actually, no, I met Too Cold Scorpio a bunch of times, but we never got to really talk. A lot of times in the back, you don't even when you meet your heroes. And this is one of my biggest regrets since I quit wrestling, kind of, is that I didn't talk to them because I didn't want to seem like a mark, or not a mark, but like a too big a fan and annoy them,
I
you
think
know?
for a while that was like the trend. Don't mark out, and I think like now it's like what? Appreciate these guys that were your heroes. Take the pictures. Do what you
It,
got to do.
it's one of my biggest regrets because I got to be in the locker room with some really great guys, but I didn't want to bother them. I didn't want to tell them, "Hey, I'm a big fan. Can you tell me about Road Wild '98 or something like that?" Because I didn't want them to, look at me different. Because
Yeah.
also, I feel like they don't. They also looked at me different because I was the dorky kid in the tuxedo that liked to make people laugh. I wasn't the big muscular Brian Cage. Because when you're big, not that there's anything wrong with that, he earned everything he ever got. But when you're big and muscular, they come up, Sean Waltman would come up to you, "Hey, bro, what's up, Big Daddy?" Like, not that Sean Waltman talks like that, but like, "What's your story?" Because they see those big muscles, "Oh, you must, or how tall you are, you must be in WWE."
I mean,
And
and that's the thing. At one point, wrestling actually wasn't for the smaller person. When I went to go try out for wrestling, because I wanted to be a pro wrestler, I got out of high school. I was big into it. I liked ECW. I liked what direction that was going. But I liked the history. I liked the heritage. I liked what was going on. I went. I lived near Killer Kowalski School. I went out there. I'm 5'8". At this time, I was only 140 pounds, and they look at me and he says, "I'm not even going to take your money. Just go. You're not a wrestler. You're not a pro wrestler.
huh,
I can't make you taller. I can't make you bigger. I can't get you that much muscle mass. Like, you're not going to make it as a pro wrestler. You might be referee, you might be this, but I'm not going to take your money to teach you." And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I was just like, I ended up doing boxing. Because boxing is just by weight class. Whatever you weigh, you can do it.
yep.
And then somewhere down the line, as the age has gone, maybe with people, I would say probably with people like, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, and others that started in that WCW mid classic, transition into WWE at the time, Rey Mysterio. The littler guy started to get a role in wrestling, and then even more so in other promotions. And now today, wrestlers come in all shapes and sizes. You get, the 5'8" guy that looks like the little dork that you could, you know, maybe beat up, or you might have that giant, almost 7 foot muscle mass. It goes both ways now.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the point I was just trying to make is like those guys got seen a little different, like those guys. Like I had a friend named Bruce Santee. He's still wrestling to this day. He's 6'8", 350 pounds, all muscle. And I just remember every time there would be a superstar at the show, they, oh, what's up, Bruce? Because he was so big. And other guys that were his size, they would, but when the littler guys would try to talk to somebody, they'd just be like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll watch your match, whatever. So when you made that connection with guys like Marty, I made that connection with Scott Hall, that would actually watch your matches and have good critiques and you would have fun with those guys. Those were the best parts. Kevin Sullivan is so good.
Yeah,
Kevin
he's
Sullivan.
another one I feel is very underrated. He doesn't get enough credit for what he's done.
Kevin Sullivan was when you there's just so great guys you show. If Kevin Sullivan was on the show, it'll be a good show. Guys like that would show up all the time. You knew they would have a good impact on the show.
And did you feel it was like you feel pressure working on the set on like, or did you know it was even going to be a movie at the time? Do you think it was just going to be kind of a show? Did you know which way the editing was going to go?
I had no idea about anything. I had all he told me is that bring your tuxedo and you're my Johnny Cage, and that's all I knew. And but when I got there, I saw how everything was going, and it was pretty much like a regular wrestling match. And I just didn't know I was going to be in the ring with two stars,
Yeah,
which
he
which
just
was
threw you in with names right off the bat.
I got
Former
to.
WWE guys right off the bat. It's like, oh, okay.
It's like yeah, it's like I'm going. All right, you're in Mortal Kombat. We're going to throw you in there with Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and you're nerdy Johnny Cage. Go get him.
Well, but that match was fun and it looked good and it worked.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of
Uh,
fun.
and that's just something about the whole show that really intrigued me was just the characters in general that made it work. Your character played its role. We needed, it needed that. Matt Sydal had his character. You had Hecate Hangman. He had his character there. One of my favorite characters, Zip Monk. They did a great job with him.
There was a lot
Transforming him.
a lot of costuming.
What is it?
Everybody had cool gear and costuming.
Yeah, it did, and I think that's what makes it stick out because your normal wrestlers, some of them weren't playing who they play or who they are, and I don't see Zip Monk on the indie scene. I don't see him in the shows. I see Hazard run the streets, but I don't see him. Um, you
I also
know,
I also didn't know I was going to take a spike to the head, and I didn't know I was going to be hung.
they didn't tell you.
No, nobody told me that until I got there, ish. And then even when I got there and they told me about it, I didn't know if it was really going to happen until it really started happening. And then I didn't really know how, and it probably made me look like a wuss, which I'll totally acknowledge it. When I was being hung, those my boots, the leather was pressing right into my shin bone because you're hung upside down by these ropes.
Yeah.
These were real ropes. This was all real. Nothing was
Yeah.
fake. I was hung upside down from real rope from like the rafter, just hoping it would hold. It wasn't a real rafter, I don't think. Like there was no safety precautions. I don't think. And but the worst part was the boot leather was digging right into my skin. It was almost like somebody was putting a knife. Like I don't know what it was, a piece of plastic or something. I had cheap boots, maybe. And so hanging upside down, that was the worst part. My boots were killing me.
Now, had you done like some kind of hardcore before that? Was that like your first spike shot?
No, I've had a hardcore match a couple times, but yeah, I wasn't really known for that style of wrestling. In fact, before that, I only bled once in 12 years of wrestling. I wrestled Chick Donovan. I don't know if you know who Chick Donovan is. It indie legend, 70 years old, probably still wrestling today. And he threw a traffic cone at my head, and I just started sweating a lot. And then when I realized I wasn't covered in sweat, I was covered in blood. But other than that, that was the only time I ever bled.
But now, where they had all the production, they could have made you just fake bleed. Why go for the real thing?
Oh, to make it look nice, I guess.
It did look good. I mean, it was unexpected, and honestly, it was like, oh my god, this is maniacal. What this is no order here.
Yeah, I'm dead. Dead. You're talking to a dead man. I'm a ghost.
Yeah, I mean, after they hung you up, and then I've been seeing videos going across, social media saying that you died, and I'm like,
This is
I
your
hope
first.
that's not why I haven't heard from him about my interview.
Yeah, this is your first podcast with a ghost.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's been any others on here. No, you would be my first. But there was it seemed like a lot of things happened on set. You had the table that wouldn't break.
Oh man, I totally forgot about that. Oh my
Yeah,
god,
poor
that
lady, just had like some tooth work, and then all of a sudden she goes into the table and
I
doesn't
was.
want to butt.
I so forgot I was in that match. I just wasn't a part of that part. I took. Did you see me take the? It was the tornado slam into the table.
I don't know. I might have.
Yeah,
'Cause
so
some stuff got edited, but then I've seen some other footage that Luke has shown me.
yeah.
And like
Well,
I said, I went up to the they were doing a Comic-Con up in Maine. I got to meet Mason X, Queen Gia, and they were doing kind of a little behind the scenes panel. They showed how, his early sketches and what his early visions of the movie was. And basically it was the same thing. A bunch of wrestlers, including Brian Cage, getting in there and having a Mortal Kombat times wrestling times horror movie tournament.
yeah, yeah. Well, another funny story is so the guy. So did you see when she got power bombed into the table, but it didn't break?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that happened, and then before that, he gives, or before, I can't remember before or after. I have some concussions, so I can't remember stuff right. He gives me the Abyss Slam. I can't remember what Abyss called it, but the Black Hole Slam maybe.
Yep.
And my head barely taps the table, and the table breaks. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then this poor girl gets power bombed through a table hard as hell, and the table does not break. And I was like, oh man, that sucks.
And everybody was just kind of like, oh no. And she was like, what? What's the matter? What's everybody
Oh,
looking at? Like,
she took a chance. She didn't complain once.
no, she was fine with it. I think it hurt some of the other people to watch it more than it hurt her.
Yeah, yeah. And I just remember we got early video of it, and Luke saying, "Don't show this to anybody."
Yeah,
And
no, no. He did eventually release it, and it took off. It went viral. And that's what I love to see. Things take off, things get viral because that's what gets eyes and ears on things. And hopefully that got more people to check this out. Because you think
I,
of wrestling movie, and obviously he's put it out there as the worst wrestling movie ever. And if you start something off like that, you don't have to have high expectations. So if it's good, it's going to be better than what you expected.
right, and that's another reason why I like it. Had a very Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of feel to it. Also, you gotta not take everything so seriously, and it
Well,
was a
that's,
great.
that's one thing I like about Luke. He puts the fun back in wrestling. A lot of the times it does get serious. It gets almost too technical. It's almost like a real sport.
Yeah,
And it's like it's
he's
an
always
escape.
sorry. He's always doing things to have fun. Like he's always trying to come up with new ideas. I've seen him do a scaffold in Maine, like where the scaffold was like a mile high. I've seen him put Sting paint on for no reason, just to go out there and pretend he's Sting. He always comes up with these crazy ideas. Like I don't know. So it's I think people. I think he had an idea and he orchestrated it really well.
I do. I think he did, and I think he didn't not only orchestrate it very well, he dragged people into it. Like he got people invested in his idea. I mean, there's people like me that I fell in love with that movie. I can't wait now for the second part to come out, and whatever else he has planned, I'm down for it. It's something I believe in. His vision, I want to see it come to as much fruition as he wants it to get there because it did. It inspired me to do better. It inspired me to do more podcasting. It inspired me to do more video work and get more guests and talk to more cool wrestlers and get more cool stories. And it got me out of that lull that I was in with just everything kind of being, the same because I saw something very different.
Well, that's cool, bro. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm glad. I hope you keep doing this. And you know, I don't know if I'm into because I'm dead. But then again, they killed Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat, and he comes back like 3 times. So I could be still alive.
You never know with Luke. You never know what he could do. He might bring you back. You might be the next monster. Who knows? The next machine. They might turn you into a machine. Um, but so you like you said, you're recouping injury now. Not doing much of the wrestling thing.
Not much right now. My health is got to be my top priority. So just just uh just observing the rest of the wrestling world is all I do right now.
I see you like sports. You're a Chicago fan, of course.
Yep, Bears, Cubs, Blackhawks, Bulls, all the time. Too much of it sometimes. Spent last night. Spent all night watching an X-Men game by the Cubs, and of course they lose, and I needed to sleep. And
It's
so
funny growing up. I mean, I even living here, even with Larry Bird and all the Celtics, I'm still a Bulls fan. I was Michael Jordan enthralled me into it like Hulk Hogan dragged me into wrestling, and once I saw it, I was just done for. I couldn't go back any other way.
yeah,
Um,
teams. They just need a new owner. As soon as the Bulls and the White Sox get a new owner, they'll start playing. Everything will start coming back to normal.
well, sometimes that's all it takes. I mean, look at WWE. WrestleMania was 40 was good.
Yeah, yeah. I watched some of it. The I just hope that so when you have a my favorite time of year was WrestleMania, not for WrestleMania though, because the shows that were around WrestleMania were so good.
Yeah,
There would be a Ring of Honor show with all the best Ring of Honor guys. Then there would be a Dragon Gate show with all the best Dragon Gate show guys, and the Evolve show with all the best Evolve show guys. And then the local indies that were in whatever city that WrestleMania is in would put on their best show. So you would travel to that city and you would try to get on as many shows as you could. Uh, in New Orleans, that's how I got on the last Dragon Gate show. Like I did a great job at Evolve, and they said you want to be on Dragon Gate. So WrestleMania is not only a big opportunity for the guys working for WWE, but guys working the indies and all those side projects, not side projects, but side promotions.
yeah. And now even more than ever, it seems like it's a whole week of festivities. Matches started even like after Raw, there's matches. Every night there was I think a show out there, at least in Pennsylvania this year. and it is a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to get viewed. It's a great opportunity to get viewed by bigger companies because there's going to be CEOs and higher ups and execs that are going to be going out and hanging out and checking out and scouting and doing all of that, and it's a great place to be.
Not
But
only
let me
that,
ask you this, what
not
were we gonna say?
that, but you might run into where they do those wrestle all the superstars come out. And I remember like stopping at a Steak and Shake, and then like Scott Hall shows up at a Steak and Shake because it's 3 a.m. It's the only thing open. That whole city is gets taken over by wrestlers. You'll run into like Bushwhacker Luke at an IHOP. So it's not only good for getting on the shows, but you'll meet old guys that have been around. You can hear stories, which is great.
Have you ever had anything in wrestling happen to you? There's just stuff you like awestruck, like just like, oh my god, did that just happen?
Yes. Are we talking about like a superstar?
Well, just in general, anything just in your career has just been like, oh my god, that is this surreal? Is this really happening to me?
Okay. There was one time in Vegas when I was working for Global Force. Jeff Jarrett's thing, never met Jeff Jarrett. And I walk into the room and he's just like, "You must be Maxwell Chicago." And I'm like, "Yep, that's me." And like, well, you're in the main event. You're gonna manage Congo Kong against Nick Aldis. And I'm like, I am. Because Sanjay Dutt didn't tell me what I was doing that night. And so I was like, cool. So I get in my tuxedo, and there goes, oh, there's not going to be any entrance music. You're going to go talk. You're going to talk your way to the ring, and then talk in the middle of in the ring. And I go, I am. And I've never been on pay-per-view before or been in, and there's 6,000 people in the crowd. So, and I've been to Vegas a bunch of times, but this was the biggest Vegas crowd I worked at, and then probably the biggest arena I worked at. And so we go do the thing, and I'm on the outside of the ring, and the Nick Aldis does this huge move, and then he punches me, and I sell, and I'm just being funny, and the crowd starts chanting, "Maxwell, Maxwell!" Like 5,000 people start chanting that, and I'm like, not only am I awestruck by it, but I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be in big trouble because I'm taking away from the match. Like, I'm totally taking the attention away from these two guys in the ring that are working so hard. And then when I got to the back, everybody's like, "You killed it! You did such a great job!" And so that whole experience was very awesome.
That's, that's amazing. And before I let you go, and then again, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. What advice would you give somebody wanting to get into this and do this crazy life?
Well, the first thing I would say is and then, but if you still listened after that, I would say you have to go to as many shows as you can. And that's a big thing I had in Florida. There were shows everywhere all the time on every day of the week except for maybe Monday. Monday was the only show day of the week there was no show in Florida. You could find something on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You just have to work hard. And if you're not on the show, stay there and try to be a ref. And if you're not trying to be a ref, be a security guard or just let the promoter know that you're there to do whatever. And sometimes, especially in Florida, there'd be like, well, if you go out and work for this company, you can't work for me. That sucks. Stay away from those guys because the best guys work everywhere as much as they can. So my advice is just go everywhere you can. Yeah, it's going to cost you money. I did 6 years of no money. I wrestled for 12 years. The first 6 years, I made no money. I would get paid $20 on a hot dog to travel all over. And then the last 6 years of it, I made a ton of money. I mean, not a ton, but enough to buy a car, enough to have a nice house. Uh, but those first 6 years are gonna suck. You're gonna go everywhere, but you have to do it. And if you're not on the show, be a ref. And if you can't be a ref, do something else. But go everywhere you can. That's my advice.
Very good. And it sounds like good advice. Get out there, get known, get seen, and just put in the work. And how can folks find you if they want to look you up and check you out on social media? Do you use social media?
Oh, just Twitter, Henry Maxwell, CHI, Instagram. I think I'm Ecto Ghost Boy. Other than that,
Are you a big Ghostbusters fan?
I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. You can see, oh, wrong one. You can see my Ghostbusters tattoo here.
Oh wow. Have you seen
Yeah.
the new movie yet?
Yes, I have.
What'd you think of it?
I really liked it. It's very nostalgic. So I feel like people who've never seen Ghostbusters might not like it as much if they haven't seen the original movies. But if you go in there, especially if you like the cartoon, did you ever watch the cartoon?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ghostbusters. I do like the cuts. I haven't seen the latest movie. My kid has seen the latest one. I haven't got to see it yet, but I was a
They
big
take
fan
so,
of the cartoon series. Yes.
they take so much from the cartoon,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, like just like you get the monster or the villain, and the story is very cartoonish from the cartoon. And then they get, Bill Murray's in a lot of it, and then Dan Aykroyd's in a ton of it. So it's not just cameos this time. But the thing is, the biggest problem about Ghostbusters is they compare everything to the first. If you compare everything to the first is an A plus. If you compare everything to the first, you're never going to be happy because the first is just perfect. So
Yeah, I mean, if they never made a second and the story ended there, it would be probably one of those films that would be considered the greatest of all time and put away in a vault somewhere, and here you go. But yeah,
well,
I mean,
my
but
favorite my favorite is Ghostbusters 2, and everybody hates that one. And the reason it's my favorite is I'm not comparing it to the first. It's a very different movie, different villain. The characters
I liked Vigo. I thought Vigo was cool. I thought the whole slime river was cool. And
definitely.
and I thought it was actually a little bit creepier. Me being a horror fan, I thought it was a little bit scarier, creepier than the first one because it had
Yeah,
like
the
it was
heads on pikes.
the heads on pikes, and the one scene where they're sitting there in the dark room, and all of a sudden, like the picture just goes ablaze on fire, and it's just like, what's going on here? And it's like being a kid, I was like, oh my god, dark magic, evil.
That's
Um,
a great
but
one.
yeah, my kid's big into ghosts, but I got him into it. I started him off around the time they did the last movie, and I showed him the original one. He loved it. He thought it was hilarious. And then I showed him them all, and he likes them all. And then he saw the newer ones, and he at first he was a little skittish. Even him being at the time 3, he was like,
Hmm.
"Well, where's this one and where's this guy?" And then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh," and he started to just warm up and like all the characters.
Yeah, it's really good. It's not, and the thing is, you're not going to win. They're not trying to make an Academy Award winner. They're making a sloppy Ghostbusters movie, and that's what it is. And that's what you're supposed to. You're supposed to just go have fun, get your popcorn, sneak your vape in there, and just have fun.
And that's the thing. And even the first one, I don't think they were trying to really make a blockbuster. I mean, like you said, who's behind the writing? They're comedic writers. They wrote comedies. They wrote things for fun. There's a lot of jokes and funniness into it.
Yep.
Um, and getting that back into it must be amazing. I can't wait to see it. Like I said, I've been just waiting for the right time now. I have to either get to the theater or wait till it hits video or both. um, but yeah, that's cool. Like I said, Ghostbusters big theme in the house, wrestling big theme in the house. Got a few other things. We do some video gaming and all of that fun stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It can be. It's a little pricey nowadays when games would be like $150 a whack. But
Yeah, that's a lot.
my kid's like, well, we got to get the extra bonuses. I'm like, for 30 extra. I'm like, do you realize if we wait 6 months, it'll be in a discount
Yeah.
somewhere? And he's like, but we can't play day one. All the other YouTubers play day one. I'm like, social media. But I do thank you again taking the time. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we see you come back from the grave.
I hope so too. All right, brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and hey, everybody at home, thank you as well. And if you haven't already, you've been living in a rock somewhere, check out Kill City Cup. You'll see the link. Hit on it. Watch the movie. You won't be disappointed. And as always, support indie wrestling. Versace Stunner out.
Welcome to the Kill City Cup. I got the world by the balls.